I thought I knew what family meant. Growing up as the youngest daughter in our tight-knit household, I always believed I was cherished, protected, loved unconditionally. My relationship with my dad, David, felt unbreakable. Every weekend dinner, every holiday celebration, every milestone in my life, he was there with his warm smile and encouraging words. At 28, I had just purchased my dream home, a beautiful $980,000 house in the suburbs of Denver. Specifically chosen to be close to my parents. I wanted to take care of them as they aged to be the devoted daughter I had always been. But one Saturday afternoon, a single phone call would shatter everything I believed about love, family, and my place in this world. Before I dive into this story, please let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe to support me on this journey. Trust me, this story will make you question everything you think you know about family loyalty. Now let me take you back to that life-changing moment. Growing up in our family felt like living in a warm embrace. My father, David, 55 years old with salt and pepper hair and kind brown eyes, worked as an engineer at a local aerospace company. My mother, Linda, 52, taught elementary school and filled our home with the scent of homemade cookies and fresh flowers. My older brother, Marcus, 31, had already settled into married life with his wife, Sarah, and they had given my parents their first grandchild, little Emma. As the baby of the family, I had always held a special place in everyone's hearts. Or so I believed. I excelled in school, graduated from the University of Colorado with a marketing degree, and landed a fantastic job at a growing tech company in downtown Denver. My colleagues respected me. My boss, Margaret, praised my innovative campaigns, and I had just received a promotion that came with a significant salary increase. The decision to buy my house had felt like the perfect next step. The colonial-style home sat on a quiet street just 15 minutes from my parents, close enough for Sunday dinners and spontaneous visits, but far enough to maintain my independence. I had saved diligently for years, working overtime and skipping vacations to afford the down payment. When I finally got the keys, my entire family celebrated with champagne on my new front porch. I loved my life. I loved my career, my independence, and most of all, my family. Every Sunday, I would cook elaborate meals, trying new recipes I found online, setting my dining table with fresh flowers and my grandmother's china. Marcus and Sarah would bring Emma, and we would spend hours laughing, sharing stories, and planning future gatherings. My parents always praised my cooking, my hospitality, my dedication to keeping our family close. That Saturday afternoon started like any other weekend. I was in my kitchen prepping ingredients for a special dinner party I had planned for the following evening. The menu included herb-crusted salmon, roasted vegetables with balsamic glaze, and my mother's favorite chocolate cake recipe. I had spent the entire morning grocery shopping, selecting the finest ingredients because I wanted everything to be perfect for my family. My phone rang around 3 p.m. My father's name appeared on the screen, and I answered with my usual cheerful greeting. "Hi, Dad. What's up?" "Hey, sweetheart." His voice sounded relaxed and happy. "Linda and I are finalizing our packing for the Europe trip next week, and we were wondering if you had any suggestions for gifts we should bring back for everyone." My parents had been planning their anniversary trip to Europe for months. 25 years of marriage, and they had never taken a vacation, just the two of them. I was thrilled they were finally doing something special, something they deserved after years of putting their children first. "Oh, that's so exciting," I said, stirring the marinade for tomorrow's salmon. "Well, you know Marcus loves those European craft beers. Maybe something local from Germany. And Sarah mentioned she collects vintage jewelry. So perhaps something unique from a local artisan in France. For Emma, anything with the Eiffel Tower would make her day." We chatted for another 10 minutes about their itinerary, the weather forecast, and my dinner plans. Dad sounded genuinely excited about their upcoming adventure, and hearing his joy made my heart full. This trip represented a new chapter for them, a chance to rediscover each other after years of raising children. I should probably let you get back to your cooking, he said. We'll see you tomorrow night for dinner, right? Absolutely. I cannot wait to spoil you all before your big trip. Love you, kiddo. Love you too, Dad. I heard what I thought was the click of him hanging up, so I set my phone down on the counter and returned to my cooking. But then I heard my father's voice again, distant but clear. He was talking to my mother, and he had not actually ended the call. At first, I almost hung up myself, not wanting to eavesdrop on their private conversation. But something in his tone made me freeze my hand, hovering over the phone. I am telling you, Linda, this Europe trip is exactly what we need. Away from all the drama, my father's voice carried clearly through the speaker. But what about Alyssa? She's planning that whole dinner thing. My mother replied, her voice sounding tired. My stomach tightened. What drama was he talking about? What was wrong with my dinner party? Look, I love her, but lately she has become such a burden. My father continued, and my entire world stopped spinning. Always calling, always needing something. The girl is 28 and still acts like she is 12. Marcus has his own family, his own life. But Alyssa, she is just clingy. The marinade bowl slipped from my hands, clattering into the sink. I gripped the edge of the counter, my knuckles turning white as I listened to my father destroy everything I believed about myself. David, do not say that. My mother's voice was weak, half-hearted. It is true. She bought that expensive house just to be close to us. It is suffocating. Sarah even mentioned it. Said Alyssa makes family gatherings awkward because she monopolizes our time. Every Sunday dinner, every holiday there, she is hovering trying to be the perfect hostess. It is exhausting. Each word felt like a physical blow. The man who had taught me to ride a bike, who had cheered at every school play, who had helped me move into my new house just 6 months ago, was calling me a burden. The daughter he claimed to love unconditionally was apparently nothing more than an inconvenience. Maybe we should talk to her when we get back, my mother suggested weakly. About what? How do you tell your daughter she needs to get a life, that she is suffocating her family? Marcus has the right idea. He keeps his distance, only shows up when necessary. That is healthy. But Alyssa, she thinks we are all supposed to be attached at the hip forever. My legs gave out, and I slumped against the kitchen cabinet, sliding down to the floor. 28 years of memories flashed through my mind. Every Sunday dinner, I had lovingly prepared every thoughtful gift I had chosen. Every phone call just to check in every sacrifice I had made to be close to them. All of it in their eyes made me a burden. The conversation continued for a few more agonizing minutes before I heard the actual click of the phone hanging up. I sat on my kitchen floor surrounded by ingredients for a dinner party that now felt like a cruel joke, and cried until no more tears would come. The silence in my house felt deafening after that phone call ended. I sat on my kitchen floor for what felt like hours, staring at the salmon fillets that were supposed to be the centerpiece of tomorrow's celebration. Everything looked exactly the same as it had 30 minutes ago, but my entire reality had shifted. I forced myself to stand up and methodically put away the groceries. My hands moved automatically, placing vegetables in the refrigerator, storing the expensive wine I had bought for the occasion. But my mind was reeling, replaying every family interaction from the past few months, searching for signs I had missed. Now I remembered how Sarah would check her phone constantly during our dinners, how she would make comments about my cooking being too fancy for a casual family gathering. I recalled Marcus avoiding eye contact when I suggested family outings, always having convenient excuses about Emma's schedule or work commitments. I thought about my parents' reactions when I announced I was buying a house nearby. They had smiled and congratulated me, but there had been something in their eyes, something I had misinterpreted as concern for my finances when it was actually dread about my proximity. The hardest part was realizing that everyone knew except me. They had probably discussed my clingy behavior multiple times. Sarah had felt comfortable enough to voice her complaints about me to my parents. My own family had been tolerating me, enduring my presence, counting down the minutes until they could escape my suffocating love. I walked through my house, seeing it with fresh eyes. The guest room I had prepared specifically for my parents when they visited, complete with their favorite tea selection and extra soft towels. The photo wall in my hallway displaying decades of family memories, with me beaming in almost every single picture, probably looking desperate and pathetic to anyone who visited. The dining room table I had sized specifically to accommodate family gatherings, now seeming like a monument to my delusion. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard my father's words echoing in my head. Such a burden. The man who used to call me his little princess, who taught me that family, was everything, who made me believe that love meant staying close and caring deeply, had reduced me to an inconvenience. But as the sun rose Sunday morning, something inside me shifted. The pain was still there, raw and overwhelming, but it was joined by something else. Determination. If they thought I was a burden, if my love and dedication meant nothing to them, then I would give them exactly what they wanted. Freedom from me. I spent Sunday morning researching real estate agents, carefully reading reviews and credentials. I found Angela Martinez, a highly rated agent who specialized in quick sales for professionals needing to relocate. Her bio mentioned discretion and efficiency, exactly what I needed. When my family arrived for dinner that evening, I was ready. I had prepared everything exactly as planned, setting the table with my best china and lighting candles around the dining room. I greeted everyone with hugs and smiles, acting as though my world had not been completely destroyed 24 hours earlier. Marcus and Sarah arrived first, with little Emma running straight to me for her usual enthusiastic hug. Aunt Alyssa, what smells so good? Emma's innocent joy almost broke my carefully constructed facade, but I held it together. I made your favorite salmon, sweetheart, and there is chocolate cake for dessert. My parents arrived 10 minutes later, Dad carrying a bouquet of flowers from their garden. For the hostess, he said, kissing my cheek. The same lips that had called me a burden now pressed gently against my skin, and it took every ounce of strength not to flinch away. Throughout dinner, I observed everything with new clarity. Sarah's polite but distant conversation, checking her phone twice during the main course. Marcus's repeated glances at his watch. His hurried responses to my questions about his work. My parents' overly enthusiastic praise of the meal, their guilty conscience making them overcompensate. When my father announced their departure time for the airport the next morning, I raised my wine glass in a toast. To your wonderful adventure in Europe. You deserve every moment of happiness, every beautiful sight, every romantic dinner. This trip is going to be absolutely perfect for you both. They all smiled and clinked glasses with me, completely unaware that I was toasting their freedom from their burden. As they prepared to leave, I hugged each family member, tightly memorizing the feeling, because I knew these would be our last embraces. Have the most amazing time, I told my parents as they gathered their coats. Do not worry about anything here. Just focus on enjoying each other and making beautiful memories. You are such a thoughtful daughter, my mother said, and the irony nearly made me laugh. After they left, I sat in my dining room surrounded by dirty dishes and the remnants of what I now knew was our final family dinner. But instead of sadness, I felt something I had not experienced in years. Relief. For the first time in my adult life, I was going to make a decision based on my needs. My happiness, my future, rather than trying to please people who saw me as an obligation. I opened my laptop and began typing an email to Angela Martinez requesting a meeting first thing Monday morning. The subject line read, "Urgent need to sell house quickly and confidentially." Monday morning arrived gray and drizzling, matching my mood perfectly as I drove to the airport to see my parents off. I had barely slept, spending most of the night finalizing my mental checklist and researching apartments in Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix felt like the perfect destination, warm, sunny, full of opportunities in the tech industry, and most importantly, over 700 miles away from Denver. At the airport, I helped my parents with their luggage, making sure they had their passports and boarding passes. My father looked particularly handsome in his travel clothes, excited about the adventure ahead. My mother clutched her itinerary, a detailed schedule she had been perfecting for weeks. "Take care, sweetheart. We will bring you something nice from Paris," Dad said, pulling me into what I now knew would be our final hug. "Have an amazing time. You deserve this trip," I replied, meaning every word. They did deserve happiness and freedom, just not the way they thought they were getting it. As their plane taxied away from the gate, I felt a strange sense of liberation. Phase 1 of my plan was complete. I had exactly 14 days before their return. 14 days to dismantle the life I had built around people who did not want me in it. My meeting with Angela Martinez went better than I had hoped. She was a sharp professional woman in her 40s who asked no unnecessary questions about my sudden need to sell. When I explained I had received a job offer in Arizona requiring immediate relocation, she simply nodded and pulled out her tablet to review recent comparable sales in my neighborhood. "Given the market conditions and the desirable location of your property, I believe we can list at $975,000 and expect quick movement," she said, walking through my house and taking notes. "Your home is beautifully maintained, and the kitchen renovation you mentioned will be a strong selling point. How quickly could we close if we received a good offer? With a cash buyer and motivated parties on both sides, we could close within 7 to 10 days. I have several investors on my contact list who specialize in quick purchases." "Perfect. Let us make this happen." By Tuesday afternoon, Angela called with news that felt like destiny. A cash investor had toured the property and offered $970,000, just $5,000 below. Asking price with a 7-day close. No inspections, no financing complications, no delays. "It is an excellent offer considering the timeline," Angela assured me. "This buyer has completed dozens of similar transactions. Your closing is scheduled for next Monday." While the real estate process moved forward, I began the emotional work of dismantling my life. I started with my office, carefully packing my marketing awards, my university diploma, and the few personal items that truly mattered to me. Everything else, all the furniture I had bought to impress my family, the decorative items chosen to create the perfect hostess environment, would be donated or sold with the house. I called my boss Margaret Tuesday morning, explaining that I had received an unexpected job opportunity in Arizona that required immediate acceptance. Margaret was disappointed, but understanding, especially when I offered to work remotely for 2 weeks to ensure a smooth transition of my current projects. "I hate to lose you, Alyssa. Your campaigns have been some of our most successful this year. Are you sure this move is what you want?" "It is exactly what I need," I replied, and for the first time in years, those words felt completely true. The hardest part was sorting through family photos and mementos. Albums full of Christmas mornings, birthday celebrations, graduation ceremonies, all documenting a life where I had believed I was cherished. Now these same photos looked different, like evidence of my own naivety. I kept only a few pictures of my grandparents, and one photo of myself from college, back when my identity was not completely wrapped up in being the perfect daughter. By Thursday, I had arranged for a moving company to collect my essential belongings and transport them to a storage facility in Phoenix. I had found a furnished corporate apartment available for immediate occupancy and had already completed 2 phone interviews for marketing positions with growing companies. The transformation felt surreal. In less than a week, I had systematically erased the life I had spent years building. Each step felt simultaneously devastating and empowering. I was losing everything familiar, but I was also gaining something I had never really had complete autonomy over my own existence. Friday evening, I walked through my house one final time before the cleaning crew arrived. The rooms echoed with emptiness, but also with possibility. This house had been my dream because I thought it would bring me closer to people who loved me. Now I understood that real love would never have made me feel like a burden. I sat down at my kitchen counter, the same spot where I had overheard the conversation that changed everything, and wrote a short note on a piece of my personal stationery. Surprise? A burden did this. Do not look for me. The words felt powerful and final. No long explanations, no emotional appeals, no room for misinterpretation. Just a simple statement that would let them know their burden had freed herself. Monday morning brought the closing on my house, a surreal experience of signing papers that officially severed my connection to the life I had known. Angela handled everything professionally, and the cash buyer's representative was equally efficient. Within 2 hours, I walked out of the title company with a cashier's check for $970,000 minus fees and commission. I drove straight to my bank and transferred the funds to my new account in Phoenix. The teller, a friendly woman named Patricia, who had handled my banking for 3 years, commented on the large transaction. "Moving somewhere exciting?" she asked with genuine curiosity. "Starting completely over," I replied, and the honesty of that statement felt liberating. Tuesday morning, I loaded my car with 2 suitcases and my laptop bag, everything I was taking from my old life. The moving truck had departed the day before with boxes of necessities that would meet me in Arizona. Everything else, all the furniture that had made my house a home, would be donated to local charities. I had arranged for a cleaning service to prepare the house for its new owners, and had left specific instructions for where to place the note I had written. The key would be left in the mailbox exactly where my family would expect to find it when they returned from their European adventure. My flight departed Denver at 10:30 a.m., and as the plane lifted off, I watched the Rocky Mountains shrink below me. Somewhere among those peaks was the life I was leaving behind, the family that had shaped my identity for 28 years, the career that had given me purpose and success. But looking down at the landscape growing smaller and smaller, I felt no regret, only anticipation. Phoenix greeted me with bright sunshine and dry heat, a complete contrast to the cold drizzle I had left in Colorado. My temporary apartment was in a modern complex near the business district, furnished with clean contemporary pieces that belonged to no one and carried no memories. For the first time in my adult life, I was surrounded by space that was entirely my own. The first week was a whirlwind of activity. I had interviews with 3 different companies, each offering positions that would advance my career beyond what had been possible in Denver. The marketing landscape in Phoenix was dynamic and growing, with opportunities to work on innovative campaigns for emerging technologies. By Friday, I had accepted a position as senior marketing director with a renewable energy startup, a role that offered both creative challenge and the chance to contribute to meaningful environmental work. My new salary was 15% higher than my Denver position, and the company culture emphasized independence and innovation rather than traditional hierarchical structures. That evening, I celebrated with a dinner at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city lights of Phoenix. Sitting alone at a table for one, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, I felt something I had not experienced in years: complete peace with my own company. I had deactivated all my social media accounts and changed my phone number, effectively disappearing from the digital connections that tied me to my old life. The only people with my new contact information were my employers, and the few college friends I had maintained independent relationships with people who knew me separate from my identity as someone's daughter or sister. Meanwhile, back in Denver, my family was enjoying their European adventure, completely unaware that their burden was systematically removing herself from their lives. They were touring the Louvre, sampling French cuisine, and making romantic memories, blissfully ignorant of the empty house waiting for their return. I imagined them shopping for gifts in Parisian boutiques, my father selecting something thoughtful for his little princess, never suspecting that his little princess had grown up and moved on. The irony was not lost on me that while they were celebrating their freedom from family obligations, I was finally discovering what freedom actually meant. 2 weeks later, I was settling into my new routine in Phoenix when I knew my family had returned from Europe. It was Thursday evening, and they would be arriving home to Denver, probably tired from their long flight, but excited to share stories and distribute gifts. I imagined my father fumbling with the house key, confused when it would not open the door that had always welcomed him. My new phone, a number no one from my old life possessed, remained blissfully quiet. I had blocked all their original numbers before changing mine, so even if they somehow obtained my new contact information, their calls would not reach me. For the first time in my adult life, I was completely unreachable to the people who had defined my existence. I was working late at my new office reviewing campaign proposals for a solar panel initiative when I realized they were probably discovering the note I had left. The simple message that would explain everything and nothing. Surprise. A burden did this. Do not look for me. The thought of their shock and confusion brought me no satisfaction, but also no regret. They had made their feelings clear in what they thought was a private conversation. I had simply responded accordingly, giving them exactly what they wanted. Freedom from their clingy, suffocating, burdensome daughter. My new colleague, Jessica, a marketing specialist who had become my first genuine friend in Phoenix, invited me for drinks after work. We had discovered a shared love of hiking and independent films, and our friendship was developing naturally without the forced intensity that had characterized my relationships in Denver. "You seem different this week," Jessica observed as we shared appetizers at a trendy downtown restaurant. "More relaxed, maybe I cannot put my finger on it." "I think I am finally becoming the person I was meant to be," I replied, surprised by my own honesty. "That sounds like there is a story behind it." I considered sharing the truth about my family situation, but decided I was not ready for that level of disclosure. Instead, I smiled and changed the subject to our upcoming weekend hiking plans. The beauty of new friendships was that they existed in the present without the weight of historical expectations or complicated family dynamics. Over the following weeks, I established routines that brought me genuine joy. Saturday morning hikes in the desert, where the stark beauty of the landscape reminded me that survival often required adaptation to harsh conditions. Sunday brunches with Jessica and her small circle of friends. Conversations about current events and personal goals rather than family obligations and inherited expectations. I started attending a yoga class at a studio near my apartment, finding peace in the meditative practice that emphasized individual growth and inner strength. The instructor, a serene woman named Maria, often spoke about releasing attachments that no longer served our highest good. Her words resonated with my journey in ways she could never know. My work flourished in the environment of respect and autonomy. My campaigns for the renewable energy company won regional awards, and my supervisor praised my innovative approach to environmental marketing. For the first time in my career, my success belonged entirely to me, unconnected to anyone's expectations about what the perfect daughter should achieve. 3 months into my new life, I began therapy with Dr. Williams, a compassionate psychologist who specialized in family dynamics and personal boundaries. Our sessions helped me understand patterns I had never recognized, ways I had sacrificed my authentic self to maintain relationships with people who ultimately did not value what I was offering. "You spent 28 years trying to earn love that should have been freely given," Dr. Williams observed during one of our sessions. "The tragedy is not that you left, but that you ever felt the need to prove your worthiness to people who should have cherished you unconditionally." Through therapy, I learned to separate love from people-pleasing, to distinguish between healthy family bonds and codependent relationships. I discovered that true love creates space for individual growth rather than demanding constant proximity and validation. As months passed, I occasionally wondered about my family's reaction to my disappearance. Had my father realized the impact of his careless words? Did my mother regret not defending me more strongly? Had Marcus and Sarah even noticed my absence? Or had they simply felt relieved that family gatherings were less awkward without me monopolizing attention? But these thoughts came less frequently as I built a life that reflected my authentic self, rather than my desperate desire to be needed. I bought a small condo with a view of the mountains, decorated it with art that spoke to me personally, and adopted a rescue dog named Phoenix, who became my loyal companion. The most profound realization came during a particularly beautiful sunset, while hiking with Phoenix in the desert. I understood that I had not lost a family. I had gained myself. The people who had raised me had given me life education and many happy memories. But they had also unconsciously taught me that love was conditional, that my worth depended on how well I met their unspoken expectations. Now I was learning a different kind of love, one that began with accepting and valuing myself regardless of how others perceived me. It was harder work than constantly trying to please family members, but it was also infinitely more sustainable and genuine. 1 year after my disappearance, I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this place of unexpected peace. Phoenix had become more than a geographic location. It had become symbolic of my own resurrection from the ashes of a life that had been built on false foundations. My career had exceeded every expectation I had held for myself. The renewable energy company had promoted me to vice president of marketing, and I was spearheading campaigns that were making real environmental impact across the Southwest. My work felt purposeful and aligned with values I had discovered within myself rather than inherited from others. My personal relationships had depth and authenticity that my family connections had never possessed. Jessica had become the sister I had always wanted, but never had someone who celebrated my successes without taking credit and supported my struggles without making them about her own needs. I had developed friendships with colleagues, neighbors, and fellow hikers, people who knew me as Alyssa, the individual, rather than Alyssa, the daughter who needed to prove her worth. The therapy sessions with Dr. Williams had helped me process not just the pain of my family's rejection, but also the grief of losing the illusion of unconditional love I had carried since childhood. I learned to mourn the family I had thought I had, while celebrating the discovery of who I actually was beneath all those layers of people-pleasing. Perhaps, most importantly, I had learned to be alone without being lonely. My condo became a sanctuary where every piece of furniture, every photograph, every book reflected my authentic tastes, rather than a desire to create the perfect environment for others. My rescue dog Phoenix provided companionship without demands, love without conditions, presence without judgment. The financial freedom from selling my Denver house had allowed me to make choices based on personal fulfillment rather than economic necessity. I had invested wisely and was building wealth that belonged entirely to me, unencumbered by obligations to people who saw my generosity as clingy behavior. Sometimes, usually during quiet evening moments, I wondered if my family ever talked about me. Had they hired investigators to find me? Did they understand the connection between my father's careless words and my complete disappearance? Had they learned anything about the impact of taking someone for granted? Or had they simply moved on, relieved to be free of their burden? But these wonderings held no power over my daily happiness. I had learned that closure is something we create for ourselves rather than something others provide for us. My family had shown me their true feelings in an unguarded moment, and I had responded with the dignity of someone who valued herself enough to walk away from people who diminished her worth. The most healing realization came during a conversation with Maria, my yoga instructor, who had become a mentor and friend. We were discussing the Buddhist concept of non-attachment during one of her philosophy workshops. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is release people to live their truth while we live ours, she said. When someone shows you who they are, believing them is not giving up on love. It is honoring reality and choosing to love yourself enough to seek relationships that celebrate rather than tolerate your existence. Those words crystallized everything I had learned through this difficult but transformative year. My family had shown me who they were in an unguarded moment, and I had chosen to believe them rather than continue trying to change their perception of me. That choice had led me to a life of genuine authenticity and self-respect. Standing on my balcony that evening, watching the sun set over the Arizona desert, I felt profound gratitude for the accidental phone call that had destroyed my illusions and freed me to discover my truth. The man who had called me a burden had inadvertently given me the greatest gift possible: the motivation to stop seeking love from people incapable of giving it freely and to start cultivating love within myself. I had learned that family is not always the people who share your blood or raise you from childhood. Sometimes family is the community you create with people who see your worth, without being asked, who celebrate your presence, without being convinced, who love you not, despite who you are, but because of who you are. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica about our weekend plans, and I smiled as I typed back a response. Tomorrow would bring new adventures with people who chose to have me in their lives rather than tolerated my presence. Tonight brought peaceful solitude in a space that was entirely my own. The burden had indeed done this, but what she had done was not destruction. It was construction. She had built a life worthy of the love she had always been capable of giving, finally directed towards someone who would never take it for granted herself. Have you ever discovered that the people closest to you saw you differently than you saw yourself? Have you ever had to choose between changing yourself to fit someone else's expectations or walking away to find your authentic truth? Share your thoughts in the comments below and let me know what family means to you after hearing this story. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in unexpected places. Share this with someone who might need to hear that they are never a burden to the right people, and that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is give ourselves permission to be loved properly. Thank you for listening to this chapter of my journey, and remember that your worth is not determined by how others perceive you, but by how courageously you choose to honor your own truth. Until next time, may you find the strength to walk toward people who celebrate your existence rather than tolerate it.